So just a word to the wise here. This is the story behind Need for Madness. As most of you know, Need for Madness is a racing/demolition derby created in 2005 by Omar, a mad car game which does not properly emulate physics with the motto, and we are never going to find the new unless we get a little crazy. That much people know, as it's publicly displayed. But, just like any game or action or event, there is an untold story to all of this. You see, Omar and Ahmed were brothers, twins actually, born and raised together. Due to complications, they somehow got fused together, a birth defect which took delicate and precise surgery to fix. Needless to say, Omar and Ahmed were left with surgical scars. One might say scarred for life, the mark on their bodies being an indication of a twisted tale of anger, confusion, and yes, no pun intended, madness. Omar and Ahmed were almost inseparable. They were so close to one another you could hardly tell them apart. It's almost as if they were just one soul in two bodies, they were so inseparable. I say this not just because they went out and did everything together, but they were so close it's like they had telepathic powers. I mean, they could read what was on each other's minds. It wouldn't be surprising if they could finish each other's sentences. And it certainly didn't surprise people that Omar and Ahmed had an uncanny skill at creating together. They both loved gaming, and they had plans to create a game together. Showing an interest in horror films and tattoos, they created their own logo, a deranged face with devastating, bulging eyes, hair straightened up, and this smile, this happy, evil smile that just gave you shudders. Looking like something straight out of a horror film, Ahmed named the logo Insano, a name straight from the depths of his own creativity. Omar liked the name, they both became fond of it, so they stuck with it, and began working on the game. This is where strange things began to happen. Omar and Ahmed started behaving differently. They would always be confined to their study room with the door locked. One would often hear arguing and shouting, and when their mother knocked on the door to ask if everything was okay, they would shout at her to leave them alone at once. The few times they left the room, their expressions seemed dull and almost lifeless-like, as if they were possessed. Then, one evening, after spending hours upon end in their study, Omar and Ahmed took a drive. No one really knows what happened on that eventful night, only that they never returned. It was about 36 hours after being reported missing that their car was found at the beach at the bottom of a hill, the rail guard to the highway above broken and split. Though no bodies were found, Omar and Ahmed were presumed dead. The family grieved non-stop. Teardrops became streams and streams became rivers. It was raining at the funeral, with hopes that Omar and Ahmed had finally reached a better place. Both of their Facebook pages now a gray, overflowing pool of grief and condolences from family and friends. Years went by. Then one day, a couple enjoying the afternoon near the forgotten crash site stumbled across what appeared to be a bone. Letting their curiosity get the best of them, they decided to dig and came across half a skeleton, bones fractured and missing. After authorities were notified and collected the bones, they made the shocking discovery that the skeleton was that of one of the brothers. It was impossible to tell which brother it was. No other bones were found, so due to lack of evidence, the case was abandoned and forgotten about. Then one day, things got strange in the town near the crash site. Someone had arrived in town, an unknown gentleman who never showed his face, seemingly friendly but mysterious. No one could really figure out who this man was, until one night, a woman walking home from work spotted him, walking toward the beach. Curious, she followed him, careful to remain unseen. Descending down to the beach, she found him, hood off, standing at the long-forgotten crash site. Hood off, she realized. This means I can possibly... Before she could finish her sentence, the moon reached its peak, the ghostly white beam striking the man's face for the first time. When the woman realized the face was that of one of the brothers, she became paralyzed. The man was stooped down, a faint whimper coming from his lips. Perhaps he never died, the woman whispered to herself, now finding the strength to talk. Suddenly, he turned around. He stood up and began walking her way as if he had heard her speak. As he walked past, she was able to notice the scar on the side of his body. The woman never forgot what she had seen. Months later, the man appeared again. He walked down the street, face hidden in ragged clothing, really a focal point to anyone who saw. The woman who was enjoying her summer night on her porch saw him. He looked directly at her as if to say, "I know you saw me." Trembling and with her heart beating as loud as a drum, she followed, her summer night suddenly not feeling so warm. After what felt like hours on end, he suddenly stopped in his tracks, and when he turned around, he found the woman standing 20 feet in front of him. They stared at each other for what felt like eternity, an unbreakable gaze more intense than the sound of her heartbeat. Then he took off his coat. For the first time in public, he revealed his face and scars. He stood there in silence, and the woman screamed, for there, standing in front of her, was the body of one of the brothers, with the head of Insano. Sometime later, the game Omar and Ahmed had started was finished and published by Radical Play. Both Omar's and Ahmed's Facebook pages are still in operation. By who? No one really knows. Who finished the game remains a mystery. But regardless of who finished it, one thing is certain, that one of the long-lost brothers is still out there somewhere. And you may never find the new, unless you yourself get a little crazy.